And there's that creepy voice recording in progress. So this is the monthly design team show and tell. So if you have anything to show, I have lots to tell. So if anybody has anything they want to share, you can either just take over and share your screen or drop a note in the chat and we can see where things go.
You gotta give people first permission to share screens.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
I've got a future show, but a slight tail nudge thanks to Anne. I've been doing a kind of audit of what blocks do what and what they do, and I'm probably going to do a hallway hangout on that. I think if anyone's interested to kind of, I'm just trying to work out what blocks need to support what, maybe, possibly, and go through them. And just probably next week, because this week's already over. It's not, but I know it's Wednesday.
I like the attitude. It's basically over.
Sorry, the hangout was Kelly's idea. Kelly, it rocks as an idea. Thank you.
Okay. And hangouts are Anne's idea. So.
No,
let's keep going.
Anne's in a rocking chair, so she's just giving all the ideas, and I want to be in that rocking chair because it looks so cozy and happy. But I think next week doing that, and just it's a good way to maybe learn some of the blocks as well and go through them, because it's something to weigh up. So it's like an ahead thing, maybe. I'm probably going to do it super casual. I like what you did, Sean, of just like, hey, I'm going to do this. And that's probably my approach to it.
Maybe don't follow my lead. Nobody showed up, so it was just me talking to myself for an hour and a half.
No one came?
I think part of it was I used Zoom just because I was too lazy to figure out Twitch or YouTube. And I think part of there's like an expectation if you have like a Zoom call that you have to participate in a discussion, which is what I didn't really need that. I just want exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's a slight problem for me because I cannot Twitch because I live in a field. I moved from the field in a month, but until then I do a Zoom. So I guess those of us that are going to Zoom, should we give like a day's notice? Is that kind of like the nudge maybe? I hate forward warning or something that I want to off the cuff.
Like clearly state like your video will be like there's no
look as welcome. I don't know.
Yeah, or just like video and audio is off by default.
Or you can jump out anytime. I think that another important thing should be given the hero rights to Sean. One item that I did forget to ask. So let me make a note of that, so that you can call here and then everybody can,
Oh, in Slack, yeah.
Yeah, in Slack, so that way.
You're right.
Thanks to everybody.
Every message is going to start with that here.
Just add here.
Yeah, exactly. Because then that shows up for people that are registered on the channel. I totally forgot about that.
It's like a crown emoji is in your name, I think.
Does anybody else wants to have that one? Because I can just do it.
That's too.
I don't need too much power. We don't.
Yeah. Tammy, when you said you were going to review like what blocks can do you mean like design tools or?
Yeah, so I already have a spreadsheet, which is under nobody's surprise, knowing me. I basically spent some time last week going through the theme blocks and working out what they supported. So I looked at the block JSONs and I looked at what they supported. Okay. And now I want to look at the parity with what they have visibly supported, because what they say in the block JSON and what we visibly show, sometimes those two don't.
Yeah, and so JSON is essentially like styles, right? Like
yes,
like borders and backgrounds and radius and all that kind of stuff. One thing that
it also shows what is, it's a block JSON shows everything. So it also in the block JSON it will show like what's at the toolbar and it shows at the sidebar. And what I'm looking at is specifically trying to see the global style stuff to try and see what stuff needs support. So a good example is the post content. the kind of debating issue at the moment. How should that be styled? But there's also lots of other things. Some things are going to need to support fonts. Some things are going to need to support all of the font typography. Some are going to need to support backgrounds. And just to try and catch them all and have it as unified as possible, doing a bit of an audit just on the theme stuff at this time is probably a really good idea, to then work out where we stand.
It would be interesting. So one of the things that keeps popping up, and I've heard from Matthias a few times too, is separating out block. So this is where terminology starts to fail us. Separating out block appearance controls versus block setting controls. Yeah, I know. I made the same face every time it's brought up. But I think there is something there, because there's a difference between like controls for things like colors or fonts or line heights, and controls for things like, if you mentioned the post, like the query block, where you have controls for like how many posts should show up, you know, what type of, you know, parameters you can set to query blocks. Those are different from appearance settings, I think. And so it could be interesting as you go through this. That might be one way to kind of break out. We can say, oh, it's not in this thing, so it must be a setting.
So yeah, at the moment, and I think this is a good thing, at the moment I'm being quite literal about what it is, but we can group it. Once we've listed it, we can group it. And it's interesting even now. I mean, it's pretty blunt and it's pretty OTT, but it's interesting, like what doesn't have things you would expect is the best way. It's going to be too much looking at it. It really is. I would love to do it for all blocks eventually as well. Just because I think, you know, just doing theme seems a bit weird, just doing one, but let's start with the theme ones, because that's what we're focusing on first of all. But yeah, it's interesting what we don't support looking at it, and what we probably are missing. But I'd like to live stream, because it is the things. Looking at the code level is one thing, but then looking at like how the controls and whether it makes even sense to have that as a control, because I can say, oh, it doesn't have that. And then when I'm using it, yeah, it doesn't make sense that it has that, right? So it's kind of like, I think that's the hangout bit now, is like loading each one. And it's also going to be exposure to each one, because some are exciting when you load them, and some are do exciting things in exciting placing, and break and don't break, which is also exciting. Anne, I'm going to read this because you've had dental surgery. Okay, no, just rock and nod at the same time. I want that rocking chair. That's so happy. This will align nicely to the next call. Cool. When is that going out? Ooh. Today. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that
Sorry, I can kind of talk. I just like, also it's just numb on this side. I got a cavity filled. I don't care if this is recorded. But yeah, I'm biting my lip accidentally, so I'm trying not to speak as much. Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, the call for testing should go out today, if not tomorrow. It's written up and drafted. I'm just nervous, as I often am before publishing these things.
Yeah, and I think this also says something I'm discovering is some blocks you can use in some contexts when you shouldn't. Query, pagination, just had that. And just like whether we can use them in different situations, it's just starting to use them really. So these theme blocks, like as you use them, they become where you can use them is good. So just doing that, I'm going to probably time it for just like as long as Zoom runs out, and do one of those Zooms on the short one to try and not tire myself out. If I need to do a second one, I do a second one. So yeah. See what happens. I'm going to do it anyway, so I might as well stream it. Oh, yeah, it'll be weird.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Honestly, even though it was just me talking to myself for an hour and a half yesterday, I actually thought it was kind of, my wife probably thought I was crazy, but it was just nice to like talk it out loud. I don't know if you've ever heard like the phrase rubber ducking, where you talk to like a rubber duck to try to work out a problem. I felt like I was doing that for an hour and a half.
This is what I talk to. It's like a squeezy thing, but I talk to that. So it's not rubber duck, but it's the same kind of thing, like talking to a physical object when you're trying to work out a problem. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll join whatever Twitch, YouTube, Zoom stream. And then you can talk to me and I'll talk back.
Yeah.
Cool. Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up or share? I hear there's a go, no go thing coming up soon for 5.9.
Yes. It's, I think, like the third week of October.
I'm not sure the exact date. I just see it mentioning more and more these days.
I can tell you the date in a minute.
I think it's October 12th. I think it's October 12th.
12th? Yeah,
I thought it was
second,
sooner
third
than
week.
third week.
I wasn't sure.
Is anybody working on anything for 5.9?
No. Oh, everybody's very quiet this time. Javier, Channing, come on. You guys are always working on stuff.
We're working on stuff, yes.
But not for 5.9.
No, I guess it depends.
Mhm.
No, I have stuff to show if you want. I don't know if someone is gonna show things after I'm done. You, Channing, are you gonna?
I might show.
Yes. Okay. I'll try to be not to extend yeah, a lot. Okay. Let me share my screen. I'm gonna share some stuff Tienen and I have been working. Is related to design tools. Specifically, is related to the cover and image blocks. And this project is quite complicated, sadly. When we start digging into this whole thing, we discover several inconsistencies inside of the blocks and some difficulties implementing some of the ideas. So this is a work in progress. There are several things to discuss. Besides that, I think the objective of this project is not only add functionality, but also fix some things and try to find a logical way of working with these two blocks and how they behave internally. So I'm going to start by showing how the cover block and what we've done with it. So in the screen I have a basic cover block with an overlay, and it behaves like a regular cover block. It tries to fill the horizontal space, and we have this handle to resize it. Since we also been working on this sidebar, we also start thinking about what kind of options we are going to be showing inside of these blocks. And the basic thing with this one is that we could have this interface where we can change the color of the overlay and the color and the image, all the details of the image, instead of having separate sections. But still, it's a work in progress. We still think about this thing. The nice thing about this interface, which there is a blog post I wrote about this whole thing, is that we have more controls, and instead of an image, we could add a gradient, for instance. Okay, so if you see this toolbar, we have this new option called Edit Background. If I click here, we enter in a new toolbar. And this is different. If you remember, when you have an image and you click on the crop tool, what we do is we add some buttons that allow to resize the cropping interface, which is not the best interface for cropping, by the way. And one of the things we are trying to do is try to fix that interface. And one important thing is that when I click Edit Background, we landed in this new interface. This is a new toolbar. Instead of adding the more buttons, we saw this new toolbar. We indicated we are in a different mode, and we offer specific tools to edit the background. So the first thing you could notice is that we remove the overlay, so it's easier to edit. We also change the opacity of the text. And in here, we have the first element is the fill mode. And this is going to be important later. So I will show you the rest of the things. So in this mode, the user can resize the image. And this type of resize is going to be dependent on the mode we are. Currently is the fill mode. And we can also move the image around. And the idea is that this is going to behave like a design tool, of course. Then we can zoom in and out. And this is something that we already have. We can rotate. This is something new. It's not working in this prototype. Okay, yeah. We could rotate the image. We can place the image in different places. This could work as a constraint. Like the idea is that once we are out of this mode, if we resize the cover block, the size, the image is going to be fixed to the position we choose. But we can also put it in an absolute position inside of the block, inside of this cover. So this is basically the basis for a system that will allow us to edit a cover block and add the stuff. Right now it's very simple. It's just allow us to put an image and resize it and crop it and do stuff with it. But in the future we could add more stuff like that text that right now is fixed, and we can only put it in specific positions. Maybe in the future, this interface will allow us to do stuff with that text, for instance. So users won't need to use an image software, a different kind of software. We also have these image settings that allow to, instead of resize manually, we can access these settings using the keyboard. But basically, this is something we already have in the image block, and that we need to change this frame of the image. Okay, and the last thing is that once we are happy with those transformations, we click apply, and then we have the cover. We are back in the cover block, and we can do the same stuff as before. We can resize the image. We can do, and this is something that Sean was showing today on Slack, or a similar idea, because we have this interface, and this color is working as an overlay. We could change that overlay and transform it in a background. So we have more options to customize this cover. This is the basic idea. I'm going to show you more about these different modes. So the first one is the fill mode, and the idea for the fill mode is a mode that tries to expand the image inside of the boundaries of the frame. But we could also offer different modes like the fit mode, which is the mode that by default we offer. When you add an image, you can only resize. You can resize the image, and it tries to proportionally resize. So that's the fit mode. We can also offer tile, and this works like in Figma, for instance. You have one tile that you can resize, and that dimensions are applied to the image. And this mode allows us to also change the whole frame. So we can adjust the size of the tile or the whole image using the controls I showed you before. And finally, we also have the crop mode, where we are presented with the original image, and we can resize using those controls. And we could move this, we can basically do the same thing as before. We can move the image outside or place it wherever we want. Once when we are happy, we can click apply. And in this case, this is one possibility. We could clip the image and just show the portion that is inside of the boundaries. And something very important with something we don't do now is that we can always go back to the original image. Right now, we create a new image, which is great because it doesn't make sense to maintain that image, hide it with CSS, whatever. But I think it's very important that we don't destroy the original image and we can always go back. Or at least that's one of the nice. That will be very nice. Okay, so this is the cover block. I have something for the image block, but maybe I spend a lot of time. I can stop here.
I mean, if you can do it in like a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Because my first comment is going to be, this seems very specific to the cover block. Yeah. And so I saw the image block hanging out over there, and I'm very curious to see how this applies to the image block. So. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't know yet. We have some ideas, but the relationship between those two blocks is quite complex. So we have an exploration that also cover different field modes. And for this block right now, we thought we're just gonna go for the simple solution that also improves what we have now, which is the cropping mode. And in this case, we have an image. We can do the same thing. And as you can see, this is like a fit mode, like it's proportionally resizing. And if we enter in the crop mode, in this case, this is one possibility. But the idea is that we will show the original image, trying to maintain the same constraints, the proportions, and then we offer a crop interface, very simple crop interface that user can apply. And then in this case, when you apply, because the image tries to align to whichever option is set there, we just we just replace the image and we put it in that place. Ideally, if I now click this overlay button, we could do several things. The first one is maintain what we have now. That image will expand and be placed. It will fill the boundaries of the block, but we could also leave it there, so the user can also position the image inside of the cover block. That's it gets very messy, very complicated, but there are those two ideas.
I would just add to that and say it's extremely messy and complicated, but an extreme simplification of it would be that we want to improve the cropping tools on the image block and enable those same cropping tools on the cover block. So when you engage that editing background mode, it's almost as if your cover block becomes an image in a way, like you have the same functionality that you would have on a regular image block. But obviously it's nested inside one layer. So it's kind of like to split it, that would be kind of the two tiers of what we've been looking at, improving the cropping tools as they currently exist and introducing those to an edit background mode on the cover.
Exactly.
It's not an easy problem. So I'm gonna recognize that you're dealing with a hard problem. One of the instant things that I can think of is it seems really hard to exit. That's my biggest hitch. I don't think that's necessarily a you problem. I think it's hard to exit now. I don't think that's something you've made harder. I think it's by what you've created. But I think if you could, maybe because it's now a different mode, it makes it even more obvious that it's harder to exit. So the council is really easy to miss, and you could just not see it. That would be like my one kind of point so far. But what I do like is improving these tools because they're super important to everybody to be able to do. The more that we're trying to get people to create content, the more they need to be able to create content with these cropping tools. So I'll let someone else comment, but just being able to get out of it easier, I think would be a real key to the whole entire flow.
Yeah, that's a good feedback. We have I don't know, 10 versions of this toolbar. This one is one of those with integrated buttons. but we have another option that maybe is clear with the buttons in another block that is outside of to the right side of this toolbar. Yeah, we haven't decided if this is the right way. Like maybe we don't need the cancel. It could be go back or exit. I don't know. And maybe we don't need apply. Because, there are different options there. And also something.
Sorry, with that point, I'm not sure what apply is doing. If you could instantly apply and you can do with a undo.
Yeah. The thing is that if you click cancel, everything that you've done is lost. You can apply and then you exit the mode, applying the changes. And there is also an option that I didn't mention inside of this ellipsis menu that is revert to the original image. So after you apply, I don't know, 3, 4 transformations, then you can go back to that image, which is a bit hidden because it's a secondary option.
And does undo and redo work as well? Because that gets very confusing.
Undo everything.
Yeah, do undo and redo at the top toolbar work at the same time.
Those will work. Yeah, I mean they work right now, so this will work. Yeah.
So I mentioned before around how I think this is very specific to the cover block, and maybe the image block. Just what I'm talking about here specifically is this like the reversed cropping image indicator, that dark like rectangular piece feels very out of place. I've seen it in mock-ups before too, and I've never been a big fan of it. I feel it's like, I don't know, it just feels like it's not in the right spot, if that makes sense. As far as the apply and cancel go, that also has always felt weird. I think it's weird that we're not using like an actual button, like a blue done button or something that gives you an obvious like thing to click when you're done. And then also there's weird stuff that happens when you do some stuff in this mode and then you click out of the block.
Yeah, when you mean
because I do that all the time. I'll unselect the block and then I'm always like concerned about what I just did because I didn't apply, I didn't cancel, I just unselected. And so I think there's some weird interaction stuff there that might need to be smoothed over. And then related to all of this, I think it might be interesting to consider that the cover block is not a special unique block. It is just a container. And one of the things that it can contain is a background image. In a lot of ways, I think the cover block and the group block could essentially just be the same thing. Maybe cover has some more explicit things around like, images because that's the point of it, but it's more of a variation, excuse me, more of a variation and not like a completely separate thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that changes any of your thinking or any of these designs, but thinking of them as like, this is a group block with an image in the background. And then instead of an overlay, it's just another layer in that background that you can control the transparency of.
Yeah, we haven't explored that explicitly, but it's on our minds because one of the original issues was actually think of this feature in terms of any kind of block, especially the group one. So I think that this idea of having an edit background thing could be applied probably to other kinds of blocks. Like you have a group and you have an edit background. The only problem there is how to introduce an image in that block and where to, if a group block doesn't have an image already, then can we show the edit background or so?
I think that's where the variations come in. Is it's still just a group block, but we would create a variation that is the cover block. And the difference in the variations is that the toolbar exposes controls that make more sense for that specific use case.
Yeah.
But the sidebar could be exactly the same for both of them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It would have all of the available controls, but the toolbar surfaces, add an overlay, add text, edit your image, what have you.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I think what we're moving towards could be applied to the group block as well, but the cover block is the more complicated example because you have that inner block dynamic, like you have the paragraph that it shows up by default. So we started here because there's more to, more to solve for.
Yeah, and I think there's other blocks too, like group block is the simplified one, right? But think about column or columns could also have background images. How does that play in with the other column controls? And I know this is getting really, I'm like blowing up your scope way, but those types of things, like even just exploring it could make you change your mind on certain design decisions that you've made.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's worth spending an hour just being like, well, what if we tacked this on the columns block? Other than that, I think this is some interesting stuff.
Thanks. It was very hard. So it's been so complicated.
Our brains are exploding. We're basically just passing it back and forth. And every time we pass it back and forth, we're just like, I'm so confused.
That's good. Well, I mean, that first off, that just means keep passing it back and forth until you're not confused.
Yeah.
But I think there is definitely a direction here. It's something that seems like it's starting to click.
True.
Getting warmer.
Getting warmer. That's right.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Thank you.
Awesome. I have some other stuff we can look at if, unless anyone else has more design tools and we want to stay in the design tools category.
Let's switch gears.
Okay.
Can I add a +1 to it's a lot, but I think when it feels that it visually looks simple, if that makes sense. So it's looking simpler than it started out, which means you're in the right direction. That would be my only kind of comment. The simpler it feels, it looks visually, the better. You've got to hide the complexity for people of these things. So
and that's part of the reason why we decided to keep stuff like apply and cancel, because we were like, at least that's the current flow. Because you could go down that whole pathway of being like, let's look at how this works across blocks. So we were trying to simplify the scope a little bit there, but there are definitely some more things that could be explored for the toolbar.
The world of blocks is gnarly.
This particular project makes me laugh as well because it was one of the first things I tried to design for when I first, like my first WordPress contribution. It was like, there's just like so many layers to it and it's so intertwined across blocks and a really complicated problem. But it's kind of a fun problem solving thing, even if it does feel like it makes your brain explode.
It's a very high impact. That's why it's so hard.
Right. True. We would all get so much use out of these tools being fixed. Okay, so I'm going to share a very high level exploration around theme switching. So Anne had just released, in the past week or two, this a full site editor outreach request where people could start submitting feedback about just kind of like a wish list of things that we might want to be able to do one day. And how you might go about theme switching in a block-based world or block-based theme world. So let me share my Figma. I have a couple prototypes here just to kind of start looking at what we might do. Okay, let's imagine that we're in the appearance themes page. And let's also imagine that the themes page is more Gutenberg-like. Like it might share the mosaic view that we're currently building for templates. So that allows this problem to be more simple from the get-go, because we can imagine that all of this might happen in something that looks kind of like the site editor. Okay, so imagine you're looking at your installed theme, and you could also tab over and look at all your active theme, and you could look at all your installed themes. So say I have Quadrat is currently active, and say I'm gonna go look and, let me back up, sorry. Say that I wanna look at activating Blockbase. Currently, right now, you can preview or activate. What I'm thinking is that since there's going to be more considerations about what you want to keep or not keep from your current theme, maybe it makes sense to force people into a preview. So you would just have the one action that takes you to something that's kind of like the preview experience right now. So currently when you click live preview, it takes you into a full screen live preview in the customizer. I think we could keep that customizer-like experience of the live preview, but have it not feel like you're in the customizer. Hopefully it would feel like you're still in this Gutenberg universe. And I was thinking of utilizing something kind of similar to the multi-entity saving panel. So, you know, normally when you click your save action in the upper right-hand corner, then you get kind of this two-step save process where it asks you, do you also want to save, you know, entities that are embedded in this document? This would be kind of a similar flow where you're going to activate, but you have to have a two-step process to confirm a few things first. So over here on the right side, it might say something along the lines of, you know, we're getting ready to say goodbye to Quadrat. Are there any existing aspects of your current site design that you would like to activate before switching to the new theme? And down below, it says apply styles to the new theme or apply layouts to the new theme. So assuming that the default action people are going to want to do is to change to a new theme and just kind of start over with new styles and new layouts. That's kind of why people switch themes, right? So ideally, this stuff is much more secondary than the primary action of activate. If you don't want to go into the details, you could just activate right away and it's going to switch to your new theme styles and your new theme layouts. But if you want to have more granular controls over what's going to be active when you activate the new theme, you could perhaps dive in deeper and go to look at styles. In this view, it's going to show you at the top anything that's been customized for your current site design. The assumption there is that things that you have customized are going to be of higher value to you than the theme defaults that you haven't touched at all. Presumably, you're going to be okay with the theme defaults swapping over, but things that you've gone in and entered a specific value for example, you might want to hold on to those things. So in this example, you know, we're looking at Blockbase, which has this nice white background, but you might say like, actually, I had already customized the background from Quadrat. Rather than using the theme purple color, I've made it a green background color, and I picked out that color with great detail, and I want it to stay with me. And then you could update the preview here and kind of see how that looks like. Okay, here's how Blockbase would look, but with my current background styling. You might do something similar with, you know, like other attributes that you've gone in and specifically changed, like my content width. Down below, I have apply all Quadrat styles. So that might be something that this is like a more, the top options are more granular and the bottom options are more just kind of like take them all. So for example, I might say, okay, I want to move to Blockbase, but I want to bring the entire theme color palette from Quadrat and have that work with Blockbase templates. Then you might select this option. I put a little note here saying that if there's a conflict between your custom styles and the default theme styles, that it will favor your customizations. So you could say, for example, I want to bring the Quadrat color palette, but I've already customized this green background color, so that's going to default to the green background color instead of purple. A very similar thing could happen with your layouts, your templates and template parts from the theme. So if you were to go into there, it could show you your templates that have been customized at the top assuming that those are going to be the most important ones, things that you have made changes to. So you might say like, oh yeah, I've already gone in and customized my index page. I definitely want that to stay. And then it might apply that slightly different layout. In this case, it has a post date block and a different kind of layout there. But similarly, you could say, actually, I want to keep all the quadrat layouts and I'm going to switch to new block-based styles or some combination. So this is just looking at giving the user a way to drill down into really granular controls if they want to. Of course, they could choose not to and just activate right away. And then, we'll have the default behavior be kind of similar to what happens now. But if you did want to have more control over that, we would allow that ability to dive deeper in there. I definitely have some questions about the use of that customizer preview and the sidebar and whether that's going to be enough to convey like a before and after. There's a possibility of, exploring something that's more like a split screen version, but this is just kind of very early first pass at like looking at what kinds of things we even need to consider here. I also have one more flow that's also super early, but so I was thinking about like, if we're going to allow theme switching in this way, essentially what we are enabling is cross theme site designs. And so there are other places, where you would want that to come into play. And I'm going to look into more of the editor side of things, like where would you want to surface that in the UI? But another thing that I think could be interesting to happen within the appearance themes page is the ability to browse themes and kind of like grab piecemeal templates or template parts, just layout aspects, and import them into your site without necessarily activating the theme and customizing the theme, etc. So in this scenario, say I have block-based installed but is not active, maybe I could browse the theme layouts and get like a nice modal experience where I could say like, okay, maybe I want the index, and maybe you could double click on these and get a larger view or some sort of zoom functionality like we're figuring out currently with the mosaic view. I might say like, okay, I really like the index layout from block-based and I'm going to import that. You might get like a little notification here saying like, okay, you've successfully imported that. Then when you go to look at your templates, you would then see templates from your active theme and templates that you've customized from previous themes and templates that you've just piecemeal imported individually. So yeah, that's what I have right now. I realize that there's a lot of things not answered for, like a lot. So any discussion around this will be really helpful for me because it is really early days of thinking about this. And I know we're still getting some responses coming in on that full site editor outreach request as well.
I have a couple things.
Yeah.
Is that global styles at the top?
Yeah, but I don't think you would really be able to access
it.
No,
okay. I was like, the only thing I'm not sure I'm convinced that you would get rid of straight off install. Straight install. I think that is a mental model that whether it's legacy or it's learned behavior in WordPress, I still think that is an expectation. And I think that getting rid of that feels like a little bit of a step too far for future elemental models. So I would probably, yes, you are kind of optimizing for one model, the person that wants to explore and go in and do all of that. But I think you're not going to that person's not going to be around for a little while because they've got to really be engaged and they've got to want to do that. And until that person is the majority, you probably want to give that click and install whilst you are giving this experience. That's not to say you can't give this experience, but I just think you still need that safety of click and store for that person, but being aware of what that means for them, because it's less common. The sidebar, I also think when you go into the sidebar, I get the customization, but those sidebars are so easy to ignore for people. It's like people have learned to ignore our sidebars on publish. And I worry that there's going to be important information when you get there. So I would also consider the other areas when you're there. And I know that that's super difficult because you don't have much space there as I'm saying those words. And when you're using the word layout, is that a block template? And I'll be in that layout is a template, is a layout, is a block template, is the same thing again, because it feels like we're interchanging the words and it is a little bit confusing from a user perspective. And we just need to settle on something. And words are hard, yes, but we're setting a language that we need to just be like, this is the language that we are using and this is the language going forward. And it's just going to be easier for everybody if we just do that then. That was for me. And also, we've gone dark. Can we have a light mode? I like dark mode, but other people are going to want light mode as well, I think.
Okay, thank you. I wrote down a bunch of notes. Anyone else have questions? Comments?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. I think, as people have said in the chat, I think for this exploration, your second flow here, the different templates, the right answer for that is probably integrating the templates into the patterns directory or something like that.
Yeah,
I think because people won't know to dive in to whatever theme to find specific templates, because we don't advertise themes that way really. But regarding the first flow, my first reaction was just that I think it's a little more, I think it's a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I think it seems fine to me, at least for now, to just offer people two choices when they switch themes, and have, basically, I guess 3 choices. The first choice is kind of the default, which is what we do today, which would be like use the templates and the styles from this theme. Or if they want to get more granular, only allow them to apply the styles. And the reason for that is I think that at least when they're switching themes gives them a really quick choice to make. And if they did choose to not import the templates, I don't think I think the place where they would make those, where they would maybe switch those later on is in the actual site editor, because they should be able to be in the site editor and like be editing their homepage and be able to choose like, okay, I'm using this template that I created before, but I want to instead swap in the themes template, or vice versa. Like, I switched to the block-based theme and it's using that homepage template, but I have this old template from like before I switched to this theme, and that's still saved here, so I can revert to that from within the site editor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely,
Okay.
I have a whole section of comps. I'm not quite ready to share them yet, but I do have explorations for how this would surface in the editor as well. But I'm mostly focusing here on the theme section and appearances, just because each one of those projects is kind of like a deep dive, like they could definitely be surfaced in the inserter. And I've looked at introducing a new tab in addition to patterns. I definitely think in your document settings in the post editor that you would want to be able to switch templates, not just from that active theme, from other themes that are other templates that have been saved as well. I even think that on theme switch, you might want to allow people to browse through existing like template parts, like headers, for example, after making that switch. So I think there's maybe 3 or 4 really good places that we could surface this cross theme functionality for the design of your site. I think that's a really good call. Like it doesn't all need to be done in the theme directory. So that's definitely part 2 of this explore.
Cool, sounds good. Yeah, I think like the initial part here is like getting them interested in a theme and getting them to choose one. And then once they do make that decision, depending on, you know, whether they've chosen to do the styles or the styles and the templates, then like we can provide them with next steps after that, you know, and send them into the site editor or wherever they belong.
There's a lot to unpack here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as just, oh, I'm just switching my theme. But saying that, that's what I want, right? I want it to be like, I just click a button and my theme is switched and everything works the way I expect it to. I think Kel kind of touched on this, and we chatted about this yesterday too, is I think just having this list of like checkboxes is going to be super overwhelming, because I don't even understand what half those things do. Like you showed the really easy ones that have very obvious visual changes, right? But like there's lots of things that won't, like all of the templates, like there's no, that it's not going to show me if I check the templates, like how that affects my current site. And I think some of this comes down to, education as Anne's mentioning in the chat. I think some of it comes down to what is a theme, and not like in this big existential, like themes are dead, whatever, long-lived themes. It's more, I'm doing my big deal hands. It's more like what is a theme to the person who's using this? Is it just a collection of styles? No. Is it just a collection of templates? No, it's both of them bundled together. And when you break that bundling, I think it brings up a lot of questions around like, what is a theme? Why do I even have a theme? Why don't I just have some styles and some templates that I just choose? And the reality is that themes are really, the whole point of themes is that they can like create this great experience by combining these two things. And so I think Cal mentioned it too, like making it really simple. Like you either choose yes or no. That's it. I'm bringing everything over or I'm bringing nothing over. I have the templates from my theme and my custom templates. That's it. I'm not bringing, you know, a template from XYZ theme and trying to mix and match. And maybe that's advanced user stuff. But I think for most people, it's just, I switch the theme. This is what I get now. And I think it would help make that decision much easier. I'm also
not sure someone's going to care about their theme. I think someone is like, what's a theme? Existential, but most people aren't going to want to care. They're just going to want to, like, anytime we can de-escalate the importance of a theme, that sounds weird, but the weight of it, the choice, the decision, and just make it like, oh, this is just pretty, it just works is what we should be going for. I think, and thank you, Kel, for that. It kind of solidifies my feeling of it. It just feels like we're adding extra steps, and that's kind of my concern. It's already a bit clunky, and I mean that with all generosity in my heart, because it's just something that's happened over time. It's an area we haven't got to focus on, right? But making it less clunky probably involves just taking some of that decision away. If someone wants those decisions, great, but they have to be really engaged to want those decisions, and most people aren't going to want that. I worry about exposing a lot of this in the editor, I would just say, so I remain to be convinced. But I think when you're in the editor, you really want to create content. I think it's a different mental model, creating content, to browsing. So I think that we need to kind of be aware of those different models when we're kind of engaging as well.
Well, we're at the top of the hour, so thanks everybody for sharing stuff. Next week we'll have our regular Slack meeting, and there's been some talk around people asking around moving times, or we mentioned doing like bi-weekly meetings and stuff too. So I think we'll probably try to tackle some of those things next week. But again, thanks everybody for coming out and sharing their screens and all of their work in progress. Have a good one.
Thank
you.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye.